Welcome to Crackit. Today we are going to discuss on how we can use records in a Spring Boot application. So records in Java are introduced as a preview feature and became a final feature of Java in Java 16, and now we started using the upgraded versions of Java. Let's see how we can use that records in our Spring Boot application. We will today create a new Spring Boot application and we'll see how we can use records in our application. Before we do that, we'll see a gist of what records are, and then we'll see how we can use it in our application. Since record is a Java 16 feature and few of you may not aware of what record is, I'll give a gist of what it is and then I'll start my coding in a Spring Boot application. So record is nothing but it is like a special class type in Java. So how we create classes in Java? Public class name. So likewise, if we are going to create an enum, then public enum, the enum name. So similarly, we can create a record using public record, the record name. It is a special class type in Java. And where can we use these records? So records are intended to be used in places where the class can be acted as a data carrier. So what does that mean? So we will use Java classes to define POJOs and the DTO objects. So if you remember, we will have all these properties, all the getters, setters, toString, hashcode and equals for my class. But I will use that class only for my transformation from an entity or to DTO or DTO to entity. So in those cases, we can use records. Why can we use records there? Because it will avoid the boilerplate configuration. So what is it? So there is no need for us to create explicit constructors or explicit getters, equals, hashcode and toString methods. Why don't we there's no need for us to create it? Because records will implicitly create it for us. There's no setters for records. Why? Because we need to set all the values through the constructors. We can understand the usage of records visually. Let's see how. So I have an employee class and I use this class as my DTO object. So I have three parameters. I need to write my constructors, getters, setters, equals, hashcode and my toString method. But this is a boilerplate code. I don't want to do all these things if I'm going to use this class as just my data transfer object. This is like an overhead to me. And I've created all these code and later I find that I've missed one field. So if I'm adding that field, will IntelliJ will automatically add that field to my equals hashcode or toString? No, it will not. We need to add that explicitly. There may be a chance that we may miss it in any of these methods. There may be a chance that an error can happen during the equals comparison. Why? Because there may be a chance that I would have missed that field to get added to my equals. So to avoid all these things, we can go with the records. So what will my record do? Creating records is very easy. As I told earlier, public record is the keyword and the record name and the data members that I need to pass. So I had ID, name and age there. I'll have ID, name and age here. So it's very simple. By default, it will have all these methods. As I told earlier, no setters for record. Also, if you see the class file that has generated for records, you can see that the getter name is like just ID. It's not get ID, the convention way that class creates. It's not the case. It is just the name. So I've just created an employee record. So employee record has to be created with the new keyword like as a class. So employee record is equal to new employee record of and the values that I need to pass. We don't have setters, so we need to set the values using the constructors. So if I run this class, it's very simple. It will print what is there in the employee class. So if you see here, I'm trying to print the age of the employee. So it's very simple, employee.age of. So we can give toString, we can use equals, we can use all these methods that easily using this records. This is the main benefit of records. So records are useful when we are going to use that as a data transfer object, data carrier. So why do we need records? It increases the developer productivity. It helps us to write a better code, and it increases the code readability. There is a less chance that we can get errors, and records are ideal for model classes and the data transfer objects. Also, the records that are created are immutable. What does that mean? Once if we created the records, we will not be able to modify it. And records will also support annotations. So these are the reasons why we can use records. There is a lot to know about records. Like there are three types of constructors that we can create in a records, like canonical constructors, compact constructors, and custom constructors. And record classes cannot be extended, but records can implement serializable interface, or record can implement any of the interfaces. There is lots to understand about records. We will see that as a separate video in future, but for today's focus, let's see how we can use this records in the Spring Boot application. So what are the places in which we can use the records in Spring Boot? So specifically in the Spring Boot application, so we can use this records in the data classes, in the configuration properties, and in the Spring data. So we will see how we can use this in data classes and configuration properties in this example, and we can see how this records is used in Spring data in our next video. This separate topic is huge, so I didn't cover in it. I'll cover it in my next video. This is the Spring Boot application that I created using the Spring initializer of IntelliJ. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a employee model object for me. So I need some employee object for my application, so I'm going to create it. Previously, how we used to do, we will create a class, we will create a getters and setters for it, constructors, equals, hash code method, toString, everything we will create. Now we can create records for it. So I'll go create an employee record now. So how we can create is right click new Java class, like enums. We will have one more thing called here as a record. So I'll click that record. I'm going to create an employee record. So if I give employee, so to me this employee record will get added. So I need some fields to it. Say I need employee ID, I need the employee's name, and I need employee age. So this is how we need to create the records. This is itself enough. So this by default will have all the getters, equals, hash code, as I told earlier. Let's see now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my employee here, employee. So employee equals new employee of. It is similar to creating an object for the class. So for records also we need to create. So for ID I'm passing 1, name is Crackit, age I'll pass it some 30, and what I'll do is so employee dot age of. So let's run this. If you run it, you can see that this target gets generated, and inside the target we can see the employee record got created. If we see that, it creates the all parameter constructor to us, and this is called as canonical constructor in records, and it has created the getters to us. As I told earlier, there is no way that we can create setters for the records. So even in the generated class, you can just see the getters. Or the records are immutable in nature, and that is also the reason why we don't have setters. Once we create the object, we will not be able to modify it. Records are immutable. If suppose I need to add some validations in the record, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Suppose say in my case I want my age, employee's age should be greater than 18 always, and if it is less than 18 I need to throw some exception. So what do I need to do? I need to create something called public employee, and this is like if age is less than 18, then throw me exception of age should be greater than 18. Now let's try to run this program and see what happens. If you see here, I have changed the age to 12. I'll run this program now. So if you see here, I'm getting this illegal argument exception here, and if we see the generated class now, we can see that it didn't create any new constructor to us. Instead, to the all parameter constructor, it has added this condition on top of it. Also, this constructor here we have created in this records is called as compact constructors. It's nothing but if we pass all values here, like say integer, id, name, age, this will be again boilerplate code. So just to avoid that, for the records we can just create a constructor without passing any values. So this will not create any constructor, it will just add that condition or whatever inside that compact constructor on top of the all argument constructors. This is how it will do. Let's now see the demo of the art configuration properties. So to understand that demo, let's assume that I have a department microservice and that's running, and I want to call that department microservices from my employee microservice to get the department in which employee works. So for that, I need to configure the properties of the department API in my application.properties. Suppose say I need to know the API URL of the department microservice. I need to know the client ID and client secret because that's secured. So I need to pass all these information to call that API, and I have given that in my properties. So how can I define that in my configuration properties? How can I use that record in my configuration properties? Let's see. I'll create a record, say department API info. It will be a record, so add. And what are the properties that I have? I have URL, and I have client ID and client secret. So I'll create string client ID and string client secret. So this is for the add configuration properties, and my prefixes, sorry, it came as at configuration properties, and my prefix as department. So to this will not work by default here. If you see here, it will say that no registered of at enable configuration properties. So we can enable it via, like, instead of giving this entire class path over there, we can also give at configuration properties scan. So if we give at configuration properties scan, this will go off. So this will work now. So we can use records to our configuration properties. Like in SpringBoot, we always use at configuration properties to read some properties from the application.properties file. So in that case, we can use a record in this way. Records are very useful. I'll cover on how we can use records in Spring Data in my next video. As I told earlier, this video will go little longer, so I'll cover that as a separate section. Thanks for watching Crack It. We have launched this channel new, so we request you to like, share, comment and subscribe if you like the content.